just leave it on that. What's up, bro?
Yeah.
Try to get done with the cutscene.
So I'm pretty much just straight facing the people right here.
No one show up yet?
We got one live viewer at the moment.
So, what do you want to talk about?
Um, I mean, aliens. I'm going right back to aliens. I think that probably for as long as people have been around, we've talked about aliens. I feel like, yeah, you know, there's like, there's some idea that the universe has other life in it.
Yeah. It's a factual probability that you can't ignore either. There are an almost infinite number of stars in the night sky. We can see a tiny fraction of them. We could calculate the possible size of the universe, but it's ever expanding. It's expanding faster than we have ever seen or can see currently. And the number of planets per star on average is like 5. One or two of them will be gas giants. One of them, at least one of them, is going to be an icy rock planet, just on average. So the rest of them have a probability of being what they call the Goldilocks zone. But not all life needs to survive in what we call the Goldilocks zone. That's
Sure.
like Earth-like area
Right.
of the
That's a
distance.
good point.
For example, Mars and Venus, along with Ceres, sorry, are all in the Goldilocks zone.
I
Mars is
mean,
on just on the edge of it.
so aliens and mystery are synonymous. I feel like for me, I believe that again, it's very possible. I'm saying that aliens are a very intimate part of our lives and in ways that we don't understand. Um, and again, but in a way, it's like the mystery. It's a spiritual thing. Because I spiritual or energetic. But um, aliens to me is a good segue into um, kind of like potentially deeper connections.
Well, most extraterrestrials are they're just people. You can't put all your spiritual hopes and dreams into one thing. You have to allow yourself to grow as a person. And a lot of different extraterrestrials have their own culture, their own identity as a people, and then regional identities of people, just like Earth does. Take, for example, any of the Lyrian races. That's like 64 different subspecies of races that stemmed up from one single race, all of which look human. The most spiritual of all of them and probably the most spiritual of any people,
Yeah.
are the Octurans,
Uh-huh.
or Octurians. They are what I like to describe as space smurfs.
Okay.
They are annoyingly optimistic. They have
Gotcha.
the concept that there is no evil so long as you do not perceive evil.
Okay, like Shakespeare.
Kind of. It's see no evil, period. Hear no
Right.
evil, see no evil,
Okay.
all that good stuff. Um, the
This is some Kara one. Go check out his TikTok.
Simcar one
Some Kara dot one
dot tree.
dot tree. Go check out his TikTok. See him live. You know, spitting truth for a while.
But always, always, it's no better policy than honesty. But all of the all the life in the universe, they all have the concept of life, of death, of birth, rebirth, growth.
Yeah.
Even some of the most hostile species you'll come across, even they have their own culture, their own identity as a people. Even they have their good times. Hostile species such as the Duquesnes. The Duquesnes are supposedly slave masters, and they see Earth as another area where they can get, you know, cheap slave
Mm.
labor. The Duquesnes are 100% reptilian species, but they're like what people define as the gray, short little dudes, but
Mm-hmm.
they're green.
Mm.
Um, Depending on the ethnic group, if you will, their eyes will have a slight acute lensing to it,
Mm.
meaning that it'll have a reflective purpose to it that's organic, not cybernetic. Um,
Let me ask you, um,
when light hits it, like
being
transitional
someone
rays.
who has had contact with extraterrestrial life, would you say that it's something that can be introduced to others? Can you?
The way that I did it, probably not. I don't recommend it. I've had good experiences and bad experiences. I've met quite a few different species, but I don't recommend the way that I went about it. Being visited is way different than being abducted. Being abducted sucked, especially for the matri.
Okay.
With those guys, they dragged my ass out by my feet and made me hit my fucking door.
Mm.
They were violent. If on special occasions they'd break into my house and fucking pull me out of my bed.
And this was which species again?
They're called the matri.
This is the Matri,
Yeah,
right?
they are the Apache Ant-Men, actually.
Okay.
Uh, I
The
was saying
Ant-Man
like
from the
even the
myths
most
of the sea. Yeah.
vicious, even the most vicious of creatures, uh, they can have a good moment. And the Apache Ant-Man story is excellent, excellent point of that because while I have an inherent anger and hatred towards this one species, that I've had just a really bad experience, and their culture is generally, in my opinion, shit. Just to be fair.
Honesty
Um,
is the best policy, right?
Even they have had an extremely good moment in history. They saved the entire Apache tribe from what you could call it a meteor shower, but it's more like a meteor shower that came too close to the home and bombarded the fuck out of their particular landmass.
Mm.
Same thing happened in the fossil record for Russia, like a long time ago, before humans even thought about piss and wind.
Wow.
Pardon my French. Can't forget not to curse. My apologies, viewers at home. The Matri saved the Apache by bringing them underground, and the
Mm.
Apache referred to them as the Ant-Men.
Mm.
However, the Apache, though thankful to the Ant-Men, never ever want to go near them again. And I believe the reason why is the same reason why I don't want to go near the Matri ever again, because I believe that the Matri are actually the Ant-Men in the KGB booklet or whatever we talked about earlier,
Yeah, yeah.
as well as the CI documents. They think that the Ant-Men are actually um, the Matri Collective.
Man.
Penal colony. Been on Earth for over 5,000 years. They were a penal colony. That means that they were the rejects from their own planet.
Mm.
The ones that abducted me were basically nobodies. They were drug addict kids, and they abducted me to torture me in order to make a different flavor of drug. Heard of adrenochrome, right?
Yeah.
That was their product.
I just heard about adrenochrome.
Yeah. The
Every
idea of
day.
making a substance, an illicit substance from the adrenaline and adrenocomposites in the body. The
Mm-hmm.
idea has been around for just a little bit, trying to squish in different directions, mostly in shows like Defiance, but not widely talked about. But in this case, they would, after a session of torturing, and I was like, those days, I don't know if someone remembers, but those days when I was going to class, I just felt drained. I couldn't, I wasn't, like, ordinarily nothing was going on. I'd be, like, cheerful all the time, right? Or tried to
Yeah.
be. When things got really bad with them, because they'd show up, like, every 2 weeks, I just was drained, didn't talk a whole lot. You know me, I love to talk, even then, especially then. Um, but yeah, those days when I was quiet, that's because you don't have anyone to talk to who's going to believe you. I mean, now it's easier because the government's saying, hey, there's aliens, and some of them are fucked up. You should probably listen. Denying this person makes you kind of an asshole. What a surprise! The government's got my back. Ho ho ho! Not so crazy now, you dildos. Pretty sure I could say that. But
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I imagine it was way worse for people outside of our generation, like earlier, when the government was just denying everything. Now they opened up thanks to the Trump administration and a little bit of Obama. Let's be honest. The Obama administration, as useless as it was for a good chunk of Americans, they did kind of help push it in the direction, especially with the legalization of marijuana. They probably wanted it to. They had to be a little high to accept Trump's requests. By request, I mean order to release all those files. let's let's be fair here. Um,
I'm listening. Yeah, I'm
but
tapped in here.
most of most of the life that you'll see in the universe is reclusive. That's a word for it. Reclusive. Um, most of our solar system is uh, like a mining resource for most species. That come here
Mm.
continuously, intentionally. They're either here for research purposes, materials, or uh, food, which is pretty common. Not all of it is bad. Some of it's, okay food. Like, for example, there are plenty of species that are herbivores that come to Earth to pick samples so they can grow them in their ship, so they can go about their way. Because space is vast, and at what point in time are you going to find a planet that happens to be in your way that has an abundance of the thing that you like to eat?
Mm.
And it's a different kind of thing you're not used to eating. Like if you went to Africa right now and you found a fruit on a tree, could be good research, could be delicious, right? Never know. It could be something you've never had before, and just because you've had something similar doesn't mean this one's not going to be a little
Mm.
different. Like the difference between Japanese oranges
Mm.
and regular oranges, or lemons and limes. Lemons are artificial because we made them ourselves by combining the centrite and the lime, but it's an example.
Mm-hmm.
We cultivate plants, and some of the plants that we have we know are not native to Earth. But
Like what?
cauliflower and broccoli.
Cauliflower and broccoli are not native to
Technically,
Earth.
they are flowers, but the suspicion right now for them is that they were not introduced by extraterrestrials, but they were introduced by meteorites. They evolved uh, rather rapidly if you consider how aggressive they had to be to survive. But they evolved and then they became complacent in their evolution, which means that they became two different things. Cauliflower and broccoli are very similar, and they have very similar ancestry. So it's likely that whatever introduced broccoli and cauliflower might have actually been from the same source,
Mm.
or close enough a source that we ended up growing them.
Mm.
And it just so happens that people like cauliflower and broccoli, and
Mm.
we have different variations of cauliflower and broccoli.
Mm.
But that could be a combination of factors, like similar things occurred. It's just different environmental factors to cause them at their evolution, so on and so forth.
Let's take a couple steps back with the aliens. You know, so now that the U.S. government and generally pop culture is more accepting of, you know, this discussion, whether for religious reasons, There are people out there who, again, have a connection to astrology or, um, being star seeds. There's a lot of different
Yeah.
language today
The definition of starseeds got so big these days.
for communicating, cosmic connections within the universe and the multiverse. Um, but with the rapid change that's happened from the internet and other forces behind the curtain, do you feel like there's going to be, what do you think is going to happen in the next, let's say, I don't know, 20 to 50 years? And especially being someone who, again, has that kind of connection prior to the speculation that goes around.
In, I believe it was 2012, there was a meeting of multiple species that showed up in Scotland. Humans were not actually part of this, but we were there. It's hard not to be there. A bunch of aliens show up. They had a discussion on how to treat planets like Earth, and um, from what we could get out of the gist of it, Earth is supposed to be in what's called what we call a quarantine. We're not allowed to leave our system,
Okay.
um, for
Keep in,
various reasons.
keep in mind, again, we're coming from two different places, so
Yeah,
I want to.
we're supposed to be bubbled up, um, specifically so that way we can work on our own development. Right now, the general populace for Earth is, from a spiritual standpoint, we're not that evolved. From a technological standpoint, we have the capacity, capability, we have all sorts of technology. We don't share it amongst the people. I'm not talking like just super advanced technologies. Like we're talking like most of the technologies we have are out of date and completely irrelevant. Like for example, just a closer to home thing, diesel. Diesel is a way more efficient system than gasoline is, but it's more expensive than gas. Even though you have to make diesel in order to make gasoline, which makes no sense. The only reason I do that is to try and make you pay for gas. But we haven't needed gas ever, like at all. Some of the earliest combustion engines basically either ran on coal or were essentially electric. We've never needed gasoline. It's not efficient.
Mm,
We make it efficient, but we can make steam efficient if we put enough effort into it.
mm,
Uh, we can make cars, sports cars, super fast ones,
mm,
super beautiful ones. Let's be
mm-hmm,
straight. And they run on solar panels, and not even like the 100% or even above 70% efficiency.
mm.
We're talking like 30% efficiency,
Oh,
and still it'll
absolutely.
run just fine.
I can't even tell you how many people I've met that have said that they were a part of a hydrogen engine.
Hydrocells, yeah.
Yeah.
My dad actually knew the guy that invented it before he died, and my dad had his a van, and it's so crazy when you tell people about hydrocells, but like when you see your dad pull up to the gas station, he gets out a huge thing of water and pours it into the gas tank. People
Mm.
are looking concerned, like that's a lot of water you just put in your gas tank, and it's like it's water powered. Like what?
Yeah, yeah.
We're driving down the road and water, basically a water electric car, but it's not an electric car. It's a car that was modified that was supposed to use gasoline and uses water instead.
But you hadn't seen that vehicle yourself.
Oh, we drove in that vehicle.
You drove that vehicle.
We were riding in that vehicle all the way down from Alaska to Florida.
Oh wow, okay, I see.
Well, Alaska to Kansas, and then eventually from Kansas to Florida.
Wow, how amazing.
So
Yeah,
it went a good ways before it was taken. Yeah, that's the word for it. Taken away.
yeah.
We never
Elaborate
saw
on
that one
that.
again. Um, the car itself was um, it was behind on like one bill, and we were getting the money to pay it back.
Interesting.
We
Okay.
paid the bill back like not too long after, um, but it was taken from us, and then we never saw the car again, even though the bill was paid.
And the bill, so you took out a loan to basically make the car, right?
Oh,
I
I
mean, not
didn't.
you, but the.
I'm pretty sure my dad did. I'm not sure though. I'd have to look back into it, but And certain places, when they take the car from you, like debt collectors, you don't get it back. You still have to pay off the debt, which I'm like, shouldn't that be the car that pays off the
Mm.
debt? And if you pay off the debt, you should get the car back. Otherwise, shouldn't it be
Right,
theft? If you
right.
paid off the debt, it's your
Yeah,
car.
that's
They,
interesting. Though I've come across a number of different people who've been, in the hydro engine, you know, discussion. People who again would swear on it, who
oh yeah,
would,
no, it
you
works.
know,
It works just fine. But we have a lot of technologies that we don't share. We have a lot of pieces of equipment we don't share. Right now in Canada, there's a company that you got to buy them in bulk, exclusive. It's the only way to get this material. They have a material that you can put on pretty much anything. It's a fabric,
okay,
and it projects a mountain of blue light.
mm,
The most common color in the universe is blue. Fun fact. The eyes that we have, they can see blue. But if there's too much blue, we can't see whatever is projecting that much energy. So you get what's called blue light scattering, which will make the object seem invisible. Not like transparent, invisible. And um, a company in Canada makes that. There is a special lens we were talking about earlier that cats can see.
mm,
And with the right filtration to your eyes, you can see these people or see these objects that are cloaked, with this invisibility. Seems almost like magic, but it's technology. Basically, this fabric it produces light,
yeah,
and it does require energy. They have a passive variation, which is not as effective, which means it will make you transparent. But then they have an active one, which has a little power pack on it, runs on batteries, and that, uh, which can be recharged, lithium batteries, you will end up being able to turn invisible for a good long while,
okay,
depending on whatever you have in it. The United States government has what are called stealth tanks,
okay,
and they use that technology pretty not very excessively, but they do use it. You can find it on certain spy planes. We have spy planes that prevent us from being seen, but the only reason why we would show those ones to another country, because they can see them too, are regular spy planes. I mean, they're big black airplanes, right? No matter how quiet they are with their cool thrust, which is where, by the way, you take like a block of ceramic and you put it at the end of the thruster, and then it burns at a cooler level as it goes out.
mm,
That makes it go from like to.
interesting. You know,
But the
yeah,
technology like that is it's not shared. It's not given out. I mean, I understand certain things. Like you don't want to give a death ray to a monkey, but there are things that we have access to that we don't share. And it isn't until more recently with companies like Tesla where they're basically building the technologies that we've had for almost a century.
mm,
They're building them from by scratch with their own intuition, their own idea of what they want the
mm,
future to be like. Even Nikola Tesla's device of connecting the human brain to machines, Nikola Tesla realized that, or not Nikola Tesla, sorry, Tesla's company, Elon Musk. I don't know how I got that
oh,
confused.
okay, sure,
All
sure,
right, so Elon Musk, he has a device, a chip that he wants to implant in people's bodies that allow them to communicate with machines. That sounds,
Neuralink, right?
yeah, the Neuralink. It sounds super cool. You don't need to actually put that chip inside the body, and there's a high chance that the chip will be rejected by the body. It's just how a human body operates, and most organic bodies too. That's why
Okay,
they have difficulties with it because it's not designed to, or the machinery is not designed to work with humans. Though they tried to design it to work for humans, it's using copper wires and computer chips. Our bodies don't run on that entire electrical signal. It has to run off a certain type of energy,
mm,
bioelectrical energy. That's why whenever you get an electric shock, you don't get revitalized because it's so much more energy. No, no, you get hurt because that is the wrong type of energy, the wrong power, if you will, like putting gasoline inside of a diesel engine. I mean, gasoline's more purified than diesel, so you think it'd run fine, but it doesn't. Or apple juice into a diesel
mm-hmm,
engine, not going to work out the way you want it to. Um, it is energy, just like gasoline's a liquid, but it's not the same. You can, however, make a contact plate.
mm,
A lot of people have seen contact plates in more recent years when they go to like recharge their batteries, right? You take your phone, you put this little piece on the back end, and you put it, or just the phone itself, and you put it on top of a pad, and it starts charging it, right? That sounds cool, looks cool. You could do the same thing for the Neuralink. you never have to have that inside your body. Your body sends out electrical impulses all the time. So if you can register the outward electrical impulses, you can register the internal electrical impulses, allowing you to communicate with machines like you have another digit on your hand, like another finger or another hand entirely.
So here's the thing, I know you're a knowledgeable guy. You know, you got a lot of different, um, yeah, I mean, just expertise, kind of, um,
All over the place.
yeah, um, and that's cool. Again, much respect. Um, at the same time, I'm like, I'm thinking, I mean, it's pretty spectacular going back to aliens to me. I don't mean to press issues,
Okay.
because, but, and I know you, and I appreciate that you
I
know.
just answer questions and I'll drain off. it's it should be apparent by now. I'll just rattle on in a different direction. I'll go all over the place like a butterfly.
It's fine, um,
Hey, if you got a specific question, you can always pose it back in. Just
yeah.
toss it in and
So I
we can
guess
be
it's kind of
friendly.
like, I mean, again, there's just so much to go through, and I want to hear,
You want to hear as
like
much as you can?
how, yeah, like, um,
Yeah, just pop a question. I'm all for it.
yeah, I mean, again, being abducted too, like that's, I mean, I had one experience that I feel like was probably the closest I've come to, uh, physical, or again, like a different level of contact with, um, I'll say interdimensional or extra dimensional beings. Um,
Yeah, that one's a heavy topic. I've never been abducted by an extra dimensional being before. I've never encountered an extra dimensional being while awake. I've uh, I've got very little experience at that outside of the dreams that I have. But beyond that, most contact with extra dimensional beings is technically illegal. And
illegal?
yeah, technically it's illegal. The United States government, its definition, along with international laws, define extra-dimensional beings as extraterrestrial. Whereas we would define extraterrestrial as a common fucking sense, they define that as alien, which is fucking stupid. But it's governments. What do you expect? But technically speaking, interdimensional activity with interdimensional beings actually happens pretty regularly. The Palladians, they have contact with the species and they revere them excessively, but they're actually humans from another universe, and they're called the Dals, which is actually an acronym for an organization that they have. And I know that D stands for dimensional. I forget what the A stands for, and I believe L is liaison.
So, um, again, being someone that has contact, right? Um, I feel like when you have information about the different species and how they relate, you
Mm-hmm.
know, um, tell me about, like, how, again, we're, uh like, the connect the dots for me on, like, oh, if, like, for example, at a specific time, maybe, there
Well,
was, yeah,
okay, so you're talking like certain times that we could identify that certain species have interacted with humans, like
yeah,
historically.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
There,
and
there
specifically with you, if
for the last, I want to say 30,000 years at the very least. I mean, we've had more contact than that, but let's say for like the last 30,000 years, we've come in contact with over roughly 2,000 different species,
okay,
like loosely, that have affected society in various ways. Not all of them have had major impacts on society. There was a case in New Mexico, nothing super crazy. I think it was New Mexico. It was a deserty area, depending on the cop. There was a police officer that stumbled onto some lights, and he went in and investigated, and he was held at gunpoint as these two little men um, collected plant samples. They were terrified, shaking, as he described them. And these guys are a species that does not that we don't know anything about. We just know they wanted our plants. And that's just an example that affected people excessively. People went into a frenzy at the time, and I believe it was would have been like the 1950s era, around the time that they had this mixed couple that encountered aliens that did abduct them and they were the first probe case,
Okay.
if you know what I mean. Probing is a scientific word for poking stuff. So these two were in the middle of a romantic getaway, and being a mixed couple and not being not being, or they called it forward thinking at the time, and that was an offensive way to put it. So it was like between 50s and 60s. Before, I want to say around that time actually, that police officer encountered them. And it was like a big hit in the newspaper, and it took off for a little while, and then it stopped, especially after this mixed couple had their experience.
Mm.
And this mixed couple wanted to share their experience with everybody, and for them it was like a mixed reaction. For him, he was terrified.
Let me stop you for a second. So this is all information that you've gathered from research, or is this
Now, this is
something
stuff that's presented
that's been
itself.
shared?
It's been shared all around the world. A lot of people that have an encounter of any kind want to share it. They want people to believe them. That's a factor. It's hard to find people
Sure.
to believe something that no one wants to believe. If you wanted people to believe that you had an imaginary friend and it was an imaginary friend, they would need concrete proof, like your imaginary friend knocking some shit over,
Right, right.
almost like you have psychic powers. They're going to believe what they want to believe. Now, if you have an imaginary friend and he's not imaginary, he's a real friend, they're either A, going to believe he's a demon, B, he's an extra dimensional being, or another fine option, you've got psychic powers and your mind is perceiving those powers in the form of a delusion.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people are going to believe what they want to believe, which is a problem when you're trying to convince something that you know to be true.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
in the past, people believe strongly enough in it, they'll elevate it. And I do like to go to Muhammad for this because that one got way out of proportions, and I'm not sure Muhammad knew what he was getting into when he told people he heard voices.
All right.
So I'm not gonna spam against anyone that's against Islam. You know, there's plenty of passion. I've seen ladies talk to angels and then come up with some crazy stuff. I'm like, wow, that's pretty dead on point, Miss Prophecy. Um, but when you think about the perspective of Muhammad when he first encounters his angel,
Right.
or angels, because they're talking, but not to him. Um, the query in his mind, you know, is even in a doubt. Like, are these angels, or am I really hearing these guys? I mean, well, a lot of polytheistic groups would think that he was hearing, you know, the gods, or he was
Mm.
hearing spirits, or he was kind of losing it, or maybe he was seeing through time. Um, we don't really know. But we do know that he had a large group following and he got lost in that following. A lot of people get lost in their own following. There's nothing wrong with that. You get into a vibe, you stay in the vibe. The vibe is your flow. You flow, right? You go with it. But at the same time, when you see things that involve a lot of fear, a lot of mongering of fear, historically, I wouldn't say that it's related to extraterrestrials because extraterrestrials primarily see us as a bunch of monkeys throwing poop at each other. And that's not really far off when you look at all the political debates going on, right? You look at the political debates, you look at war and what we're fighting for, what we're fighting over would be the correct words. What we're fighting over, and we're basically fighting over rocks and dirt and sticky black sap. I mean, we're fighting over nothing. People are like, well, we need oil. I just said we didn't. We
Mm.
don't need oil. We haven't needed it, so we don't need oil.
I definitely, yeah.
Even for lubrication, gelatin, all that stuff, you can make that with plants. Maybe not be as easy because oil, you'd have to make it into oil, but I mean, we can use that. We actually have no idea where oil comes from. Did you know that? You could go and
I
buy an
mean,
old oil rig, one that's supposed to have dried up,
the way
and
the
you might
way
very well find oil down there.
the way I know oil is the fossil fuels, being having, um,
It's supposed to be plant matter that has been condensed into a liquid-like state. And I'm sure that's doable, but and we've had a lot of plants in the past, but we don't really know where oil comes from. Because once that well is done, it's like if you were to have an underwater well, an aquifer, right? It's basically just a hole in the ground filled with water. If you take out all the water might slowly come back, but it's basically because other water is flowing in underground.
Mm.
So unless there's an oil vein underwater or under the soil that's seeping in like a toxic sludge, we don't really know where oil comes from. If I were to say there was anything in the world that was the devil, it'd be the oil.
Coming back to aliens, and spirituality was brought up. Um, yeah, again, I feel like although I'm completely of the belief that people have encounters with, you can say extraterrestrial, you could say again angelic, different kinds of beings out there, um, you know, energetic bodies, different forms of life.
Yeah.
I'm of the sure. I mean, I'm of the community. I'm of the but I again, I've even experienced things myself that to me represent a very real possibility of contact. Um, but I guess like, and you make this point about how you can't look to aliens or again these beings, whatever they could
Yeah, you
be.
can't look to them for.
Don't look to angels for salvation.
Yeah, you look to God. Don't look to the angels.
Right, right, right. We look to God alone. And you know, I feel like that's a part of it. I feel like we can see miracles in this life. We can see so much beauty. And a lot of times I think it is really simple things, like um, you know the changing of a season, like going from one stage of life to the next, becoming a parent, like maybe graduation. There's a lot of different phases. Or again, just like letting something go, like realizing what you thought love was is not what it is, and learning to let that go, whatever that meant. If that was a career in the arts, if that was a romance, if that was different things. Um, but coming back to aliens though, I you know, I you know, I guess the mystery part of it is the resistance, that surrounds the topic. Uh,
Everybody wants them to be exciting.
yeah.
They have a different perspective. You can think of them like they're not. Most of them are not human, so they do think differently. They do behave differently. They have different anatomies. Most of them are not reproductively capable of humans. But I mean, to put all your chips into a basket, you can't make them into your gods. And even if people mistook them for your god, your ancestors mistook them for gods. They are not. Even if you met the gods, they're not going to necessarily guarantee your salvation. Only you can do that. Only you can define your reality. If you put all of that hope into them, what if they fail you? Would they have failed you, or would you have failed yourself because you trusted in the concept
Mm,
that they were going to carry you through? Now, extraterrestrial life, if they make, there are a lot of extraterrestrials that would love to help humans, but they know that if
the
they do,
Pleiadians.
we will fuck out. Now, the Pleiadians have been messing with things that they honestly shouldn't. But the Pleiadians have know this, and they know that they're basically digging on the edge of a dagger. Pleiadians have been constantly kept in check with species like the Arcturans. And I say species, but it's their own species. They're all Lyrians. The Redanians are the opposite end of the spectrum. Oh God, more. They're all Silurians, but they're in Alpha Centauri. They've been fighting the Saurians that everyone goes on and on about from Alpha Centauri. They've been fighting them for ages alongside another race that we've never encountered because they've never left the system. They're like amphibians or something.
Mm.
Um, the Redanians are warmongers. They're like humans, but with space travel. Like the good old US of A.
Mm.
In space, fighting reptilian shape-shifting monstrosities and weird fish people.
Mm.
That's basically the Redanians. And they're not bad overall. They're Lyrians. Lyrians, generally speaking, are well developed as people.
Yeah.
All of them. And in the past, they fought each other. Oh, so much. Just like humans did. They had to learn. The Palladians have been trying to keep themselves in check, and I think they've done a good job so far. But for them, they can only have cases like Billy Meyer. Billy Meyer or Myers?
I'm
I'm pretty
gonna,
sure it's just Meyer.
I'll move over here, but I'm just gonna. Is he okay with that?
Oh, he's not anywhere near me.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Gotcha.
But Billy Meyer or Myers, he's an excellent case of that, and they're a huge following for that guy. And the experiences he's had were excessive. Everything from interdimensional travel to um, or what we perceive as time travel, if you will. Everything from interdimensional travel to alteration of the physical perception of the universe. He met the Dows. I met the Dows. Honestly, the Dows are pretty trippy to be around. I didn't really treat them like they were amazing, and they were kind of weirded out by that, I think. Because you should treat people like people. Even if they're polka dot, and even if they've got pointy ears, or even if they have wings, or some weird tentacle thing coming off of them, treat them like people. They're people. You're people, I'm people, the cat's people. Just, they're people. Cats, dogs, cows, everything, they're people. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't eat a hamburger, they're delicious. But when you encounter an animal and you're not the one to slaughter them, don't be a dick. It's not that hard. I mean, yeah, if an alien shows up, tries to blast your face off, defend yourself. Fuck that guy.
Mm.
It's the same thing if a cat showed up with a shotgun. You're like, fuck the cat. That cat's crazy. But, or your girlfriend, your ex-girlfriend shows up with a shotgun. Fuck that. She's done. She picked
Right.
up the
I
gun.
mean,
She's done. Defend yourself. But that's not to say that that level of craziness is going to happen. You should trust in your own abilities, and if your own abilities fail you, so be it. Do what you can.
learn from it.
Yeah, do what you can. There's an expression from Star Trek actually, which fits pretty well. Don't worry about being a great man; just be a man. I thought that was when I first heard it, I was like, oh, okay. But like when you think about it, it makes a bit more sense when you're dealing with, space.
Mm.
When you're dealing with the stars. The stars have always been a fascination for everybody, especially me. I love the stars.
You remind me of this quote. It's probably it's what spoke the most powerfully about Krishna to me. Um, in the Gita, he says to Arjuna when he asks Krishna, "How did we find ourselves in this mess? Our families, our family, is literally about to go to war with itself, and we've been around the world, done all these things, but it's all come to this. You know, what was is this worth it? What is the answer, oh great Krishna?" And he says back to his friend and disciple, "It is better to do your job poorly than to do another man's job well." And the the beauty of the nuance, not just the nuance, but really, I feel like there's such a great lesson there. you know, and yeah, you just reminded me of that.
There's a lot of good stuff out there. because I know you want to stay on the topic. Um, with the Octarans, I never really got along well with them
Mm.
because I felt like, I mean, I understand the perspective on it, and I respect it and all that stuff, but
What was
like,
your relationship with them like?
oh, I only met them a few times. Um, with them, it was like occasional meetings just to see new races and
They
stuff.
just appear to you like at
No, no,
night,
no.
or
I went to Arcturus. Like I visited. I had a deal going on. It was me and like six or so people just cruising about, learning the lessons of the universe, or supposed to be learning the lessons of the
they just be
universe.
hanging out with you?
More like I hang out with them and see what's up.
Okay.
That was the idea.
So that you know where to go meet them.
Oh no, that I had another I had I had a ride, if you will. I had people guide me to them, take me to them. Like, hey, hang out with this dude. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever.
Okay.
Are those other people around?
Oh, I still talk to a few of them on Facebook, um, but I'm pretty sure all of us stopped traveling like years ago. When you are being abducted or you're being visited, and they want you to forget, the best way to remember is in the moment forget. Let it come to you. Just don't hold it in. Don't try to take it in. Just let it go. Let it be a moment. You're like, oh yeah, that's fine. Gas station, let's go. Right? Like you got to go to the bathroom, so you're
Ah,
walking through the gas station, you're walking through Walmart, you're not checking all the books and stuff. But then you get your mind wiped, and now you remember everything that happened that you passed, or all the things you passed, but you don't remember that you went to the bathroom. You know what I mean?
yeah,
You
yeah.
remember all the stores, or going. You don't remember going into the store. You just remember the store itself.
Sure.
You don't remember leaving the store. You just remember the store itself. So if you want to remember something, let it go. Not only that, the first things you're going to remember when you remember it are things that you think are useless information, like your brain thinks is useless information, like uh, a smell. A lot of times when you have a memory, you go back to that time in your mind, right? There's a smell. It's got a certain smell, a certain taste in the air. That is the census that you had at the time.
Mm,
And when you get abducted or you have your mind wiped, those are things you're going to remember. The useless things.
mm,
Most of the time when you hear the description of extraterrestrial contact, you ordinarily, in the moment, do not think about how this person's breath stinks. Because they are freaky to look at, and that's the first thing that comes to mind. Because 90% of your information is from your eyeballs, right? So, like, knowing that their breath smells like hot garbage, that's second in your mind. But that's the
jeez.
first thing you're going to remember when you start remembering, was I just abducted by aliens? Oh, dude, his breath was so bad. His skin smelled like a lit match, but his breath, dude, oh, the worst garbage. That's a thing, by the way, from
Yeah,
Matri. Gross. Um,
definitely.
but the those are things that you're going to end up getting with. With the Octurans, I basically just went to Octurus and hung out at a temple on one of the planets or moons. I think there actually are. They had like this reclusive
When you
temple.
say you hung out on the moons, though.
Well, no, it was it's the place that we hung out. It was either a moon or a planet. I just don't remember. It's been so long. I'd have to like look up Arcturus and be like, oh, it would have been a moon. Okay, whatever.
But you got so, but I mean, it was kind of like you just kind of
Oh, I was okay. So I basically flew there. You can like think of like going in the airport. You get on a ride. You go to airport. You go to China or go to like Japan, right? And you go to a temple, and that's it. That's all you do. And you get on the plane and you go home.
okay.
That's basically what I did. In this case, I went to Arcturus in essentially a flying saucer, and then I hung out with a monk, this old guy, this old blue dude. I hung out with Papa Smurf, bro. He was the hippiest Papa Smurf I've ever met. But yeah, I wasn't getting really behind him on the idea, but I do respect the concept that uh, the faults, you will always find what you're looking for. You will find evil when looking for evil. You will find good when looking for good. So they shut themselves off from evil entirely. That's how Octurans do it. They shut themselves off from evil, and they only look for good. They refuse to accept evil. Evil does not exist.
Mm.
That's the idea. I've always thought of it like um, a sort of an ostrich with its head in the ground. You're not allowing yourself to see the full spectrum. But in reality, if you think of conceptualization, they are probably one of the most advanced because they conceptualize with a lot of their stuff. A lot of the stuff are Arcturians or Arcturians, whatever. They seem almost magical half the time.
Mm.
They can become incorporeal or whatever. They can become like basically ghosts or energy beings temporarily. It's not permanent for them because when it's permanent for them, they're gone. You've left the perception of that being. They are, from your perspective, like a Jedi Force ghost. Which everybody's experience is supposed to be different. The Arcturans are crazy in a way that's not bad, but I mean, like, just being around them is pretty weird. I want to say, if I'd have to call them anything, it'd be Space Smurfs. Everything's got to be happy all the time. I'm not saying that Arcturians can't be sad; they just refuse to be. They refuse to be angry, depressed. They can be, they just refuse to be.
How interesting.
It's not like they're repressing that side of them. They just give up on it. They let it go. They don't hold it. They let it go. They completely let it go. They've learned from a very young age to let it go. To let all of that stuff weighing you down go. And that's what pushes them forward. That's their mentality. They have a huge, I guess you could say, cult following on Earth just because of that entire thought process. They are, without a doubt, one of the most spiritually enlightened people that you'll ever come across. But they're a different kind of spiritual than most people want. And I say most people because most people don't want to give up on those things that the Arcturians let go. A lot of people do. Don't get me wrong. Plenty of them do. Especially the Starseed side of that thing. But people want to be able to feel everything. They don't want to just feel good. They want to feel bad too. It's what helps them to feel like they've accomplished something when they've overcome that bad feeling. And I'm in that zone, so that's probably why I didn't really get a whole lot from Arcturians. And as you can see, I still understood what they were getting across, but I still probably missed a lot. Because that's just how they are. They're way, way developed. Like, if you were to compare them to anything, it'd be like talking to the Buddha. Like, the Buddha gives you this hardcore lesson, but the Buddha is human, so the Buddha can explain it as a human would. Arcturians are not human, so they're going to explain it like an Arcturian is, and they're going to treat you like one of their children. And their children are more head, so you're still lost. Even when you think you're there, you're still lost. They know this, but they don't waste the time on it most of the time, unless they feel like they've got a goal that has to be accomplished. In which case, they'll try to reach your point at that stage. But if you're just like me and you were just there to hang out, then they're just gonna let you go. They're just gonna let you go. You'd be like, so lost. All right, cool. That's great. See you next week. Or never again. Have fun. Live long and prosper, or whatever. They never said that, by the way. They never said live long or prosper. It was always like love and light, like all the time. That's a common Starseed expression, but like the response, in case you ever get love and light hit on you, is wisdom and courage. Because love and light without wisdom or courage is pointless. It's just open wind, like farting in the wind.
Not very true.
There's nobody there to like denounce it. It's just wind. There's no sink. It's just wind.
So you heard it all here first. Again, shout out to my man right here, Samkara Tree, TikTok. Check him out. He's got a lot of great content. We got someone with cigarettes, but you'll catch that next time. Jump over to Stereo if you want to get more of the conversation. And peace, love, blessings, and light.
Love and light.
So have a good night.